has been several weeks since a large caravan of migrants made its way through Central America and Mexico, arriving at the U.S. border, and the situation has yet to be resolved. Here to talk about this is Gary Teal, Executive Director of the Travis County Republican Party, and Delma Limones with the Texas Democratic Party. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So hundreds of migrants remain camped outside of a shelter in Tijuana, hoping to cross into the United States. President Trump has vowed to keep them in Mexico while asylum applications are being processed. Meanwhile, he is continuing to push for border wall funding. Gary, will the president be able to convince Congress to pass wall funding before the end of the year?
Well, I don't know. I think that we're going to get a early clue as to how he will work with the new Congress after he meets tomorrow with the Democratic leaders of the Senate, including Nancy Pelosi. He may come out of that meeting feeling like he can do some kind of deal next year, or he may indeed feel like he has to go for a shutdown of the government in order to get the funding that he wants.
Delma, how likely is it, in your opinion, that Congress will approve border wall money before Democrats take control of the House in January?
So border wall is not an effective form of border policy. It's a symbolic way of telling immigrants that they're not welcomed here. The majority of Americans agree that the border wall is not an effective solution to our immigration crisis and the very real humanitarian crisis that's happening on our border. And so I don't think that he's going to be able to get that funding. The majority of Americans don't want it, and we have a new House that's ready to deliver on the things that they voted them in for this November.
Gary, you touched on this. Do you think the government will shut down over border wall funding, or will Republicans forego it, at least for now?
I think that there probably won't be a shutdown because it would be a bad time to have one. I think the president tweeted that it would maybe be a good time for one, and maybe that was a shot across the bow. Nobody wants the government to be shut down at Christmas, but I will say government shutdowns were once seen as a horrific thing to have happen, and although some paychecks are delayed, I think we've seen before that airplanes don't fall out of the sky. A government shutdown is at this point a negotiating tactic that's been used by both sides, I think.
Delma, you talk about the border wall, saying that that's not an form for border control. What is your take? What is?
So we have a real immigration crisis. What we've seen time and time again is that this president has used immigrant youth as political pawns in order to fund his border wall. He's willing to have a government shutdown in order to get this funding across, when in reality these are all distractions from all the things that are happening in his administration.
Gary, what do you think is likely to happen as we get close to the end of the year?
Well, I think he'll get some of the funding that he wants, and he may work a deal so that he'll get additional funding agreed to that would come in the following year's fiscal budget. But I think that both sides want border security. It's really not a serious position of any office holder to want an open border. We have to secure the border, and I think most elected officials agree.
All right, Delma, final thought.
Again, what we've seen is that this president is willing to use immigrant youth, is willing to shut down the government, to send a strong anti-immigrant rhetoric. This is what we've seen that time and time again that he's wanting this wall for. And so we're glad that we have a new, strong Democratic House that's willing to stand up towards the president and say that we're not going to give any resources to this wall.
We are out of time, but Delma, Gary, thank you both for coming in and sharing your perspectives with us tonight.